Alright, hello everyone. We're going to be talking today about the financial aid process and your award letters and where to go after you kind of fill out your FAFSA. So let's get started. My name is Erica Wood. I am a college advisor at Eastern View High School. My email is up there on the screen. Feel free to email me, or seniors, you can text at EV2020 to 81010, and that is my remind. So. Alright, so let's just go over the FAFSA really quick and just basic information. So the FAFSA is the free application for federal student aid. It's something that you will fill out every year that you are in college. So you will fill this out all 4 years or all 2 years that you are at a trade school, community college, or four-year university. And then if you go to graduate school, you also have to fill out the financial aid as well. So the website is displayed on the screen. That's where you can find the FAFSA. It must, like I said, it must be completed yearly. It is free. A lot of parents ask me if the FAFSA application affects your credit score, and it does not. And it opens on October 1st of every year. So be aware of deadlines. FAFSA does not have one set deadline, but there is a priority deadline for the FAFSA. And there is a link that I have attached to this, and it will send you to all of the FAFSA priority deadlines for Virginia schools so that you know what your FAFSA deadline is for your particular school. So for example, the priority deadline does not mean that you will not get any financial aid. It just means that you are not guaranteed financial aid. So for example, if you apply to Radford and you don't fill out you fill out your FAFSA on December 2nd, but the priority deadline was December 1st, then you are now not guaranteed for financial aid. Whereas if you applied by December 1st, you would have been guaranteed financial aid. Alright, so what is actually calculated into the FAFSA? So what happens when you fill out the FAFSA is you'll complete it, and then you will log back into your FAFSA. Once you get an email saying it's processed successfully, students and parents, you should log back into your FAFSA account, and then that will generate something called an SAR, and that is your student aid report. And so within your SAR, you will receive an estimated family contribution, or an EFC. That EFC is what will be sent off to all of the schools that you have listed on your FAFSA, and that is what your schools will use to generate a financial aid package. So if you don't have the school that you are planning on attending, or you're changing around your applications a lot, make sure that you are changing that, making those corrections on the FAFSA so that your EFC is being sent to the correct schools. So from there, it will be categorized into two different types of aid. So there is need-based aid and merit-based aid. So need-based aid is based on your EFC that you receive from your FAFSA. So that is federal and state grants, work study, and subsidized student loans. Those are all need-based. So if your EFC is lower, your need-based aid is higher. And then there's merit-based. So merit-based is a lot of scholarships, private scholarships from institutions, and other unsubsidized loan. So merit-based is, for example, if a school tells you to apply by a certain date, because then you will be qualified for merit-based scholarships, that is based on your academic achievement. So if you're high achieving in your academics, then you will most likely be rewarded in some form of scholarship or aid from your institution in merit-based aid. Alright, so need is calculated using a couple of different things, but this is a simple equation that every college, every university is going to use. So it is the cost of attendance of the university, which we'll talk about a little bit in the next slide, and it looks a little different for every school, minus your EFC, and then that equals your financial aid package or the student need. So they will use this to assess what they will be giving you in your financial aid package. So the cost of attendance it varies greatly across all schools. It includes some of these things, but like I said, it varies greatly for schools as well as for students. So for example, a student who lives in New York and is going to James Madison University And Harrisonburg, Virginia probably has more travel expenses than a student who lives in Harrisonburg, Virginia and is commuting to James Madison University. So this varies greatly. These are all factors that play into the cost of attendance for each school. EFC, one more time, that estimated family contribution, it's determined by information on the FAFSA, which is how many dependents you have in your household, how you filed your taxes, how many students you have in college, how many children you have, how many dependents you have, your assets. It takes all of that information and it generates this EFC. And like I said, it's calculated by adding your family's contribution, tax and untaxed. So a lot of times you might find that the EFC, even if your parents aren't paying for your school, but they make a significant amount of money, unfortunately the FAFSA is not going to take that into consideration, so your EFC will be high regardless. This frankly sucks, and it is super unfortunate that this is how need-based aid is generated, but that is the fact of the matter, that they take into account how much your family, your household makes, and then they generate an EFC based on that, regardless of whether or not you're the one paying for your school or your parents are helping you pay for your school. So let's go over types of aid. There are 4 types of aid: scholarships, loan, work-study, grants. So we're going to talk about scholarships first, then grants, then work-study, then loans, because that's kind of the order. If you want things, you want scholarships and grants, you don't have to pay that money back. Work-study, you can work for that money, and then loans are money that you have to pay back. Scholarships, free money. So all of the scholarships are on Naviance, and the local scholarship kickoff will be on February 28th. So the scholarships on Naviance right now are state and national based scholarships, and then the local ones, like I said, will be coming February 28th. And there are also scholarships on the scholarship wall, which is just another resource for the students to be able to grab those scholarship applications. Also ask about institutional scholarships. If you're not getting any institutional scholarships and you feel like you have done well academically and you deserve those, by all means ask that institution about different scholarships that you might be able to apply for. Germanna specific scholarships. So Mr. Johnson will have more information about that coming soon, but there are Germanna specific scholarships that will be available for you to apply to very soon. So Mr. Johnson will have that information. Grants. So grants are also money that you don't have to pay back, but these are typically based on need. So the Pell Grant is intended for the neediest students. It's based on your EFC once again. And the max amount for this year, I believe, is $6,195, but I'm not sure about that exact number, so I just said around $6,000. So you could get the entire Pell Grant based on your EFC, you could get some of the Pell Grant based on your EFC, or you could get none of the Pell Grant based on your EFC. And you will be able to find out how much you are eligible for to receive in that grant in your SAR or your student aid report, which is why I told you to log into your FAFSA at the beginning of this presentation and check out that SAR report. And you will want to print that out every year just to keep track. And sometimes scholarships or institutions will ask for that SAR. There is also a TEACH grant. So this one's a little tricky. You can receive up to $4,000 per year, but not all schools take the TEACH grant. So for example, James Madison University does not take the TEACH grant. But if you do decide that you want to go into teaching and that is your passion and that's what you want to do for the rest of your life, you could use the TEACH grant, but there is a catch. You have to serve at least 4 years in a school serving high-risk students in an area of need. And if you decide, so if you use the TEACH grant for 1 year and you decide to change your major and you want to be a nurse now, that grant that you used for that year will now turn into an unsubsidized loan. So, and that is where interest accrues from the start. So you definitely want to make sure that this is something that you're going to do and you're going to stick with before you choose to use this loan. And then the last, there's Virginia grants. So there's VTAG and VGAP. Virginia Tuition Assistant Grant, this is for private colleges in Virginia. Last year it's about $3,200. It is a separate application that is not yet available, but information will be out about that when it is available. You can Google it. And then the Virginia Guaranteed Assistance Program is for the public schools in Virginia, and you will be notified in your financial aid package if you are eligible / if you receive this grant. And then work study. So work study is based on your EFC. It's, students with lower EFCs will receive more work study, and this is basically up to the university where you can be placed. For example, I went to JMU, and there was a website where we would go down, and it had all job listings, and then it would identify whether or not they were a work study. So it could be on campus, it could be off campus, but you have to seek out those opportunities. Somebody's not going to give you a job application. You have to ask about those work study opportunities. All right, and then loans. So there are 3 different types of loans. So let's first dive into subsidized and unsubsidized loans. Unsubsidized loans, so both of these loans are in the student's name. Unsubsidized loans, they are not need-based, and the interest starts accruing once the loan is disbursed. And then the subsidized loans, the interest accrues 6 to 9 months after graduation. So the subsidized loan is need-based. Students with lower EFC will receive more subsidized loans than unsubsidized. So essentially, once you graduate from college, 6 months after your graduation date, you are expected to start paying back your student loans. So this is just saying that the unsubsidized loans, if you took a loan out when you were a freshman, that unsubsidized loan will accrue interest until you start paying it off. And then the subsidized loans will not start accruing interest until till 6 to 9 months after that graduation date. So essentially, if you take out both types of loans, you want to pay off the unsubsidized first because it's accruing more interest, and then you can save these subsidized loans for paying off last. And then you have a Parent Plus loan. So parents are the borrowers. You can never transfer this loan to a student. So if something happens and you need to transfer this loan to your student's name, that is just not an option. You must have good credit in order to receive this loan. And these loans, if you don't have to take these loans, I would not recommend taking Parent Plus loans because they are the highest interest rate. So the subsidized and unsubsidized loans have about a 1 point something interest rate, and then the Plus loan has about a 4% something interest rate. So be really cautious of that. If you absolutely must, you definitely can take the Parent Plus loan, but making sure that you're understanding what situation you're going into. Alright, and then finally, let's just talk about understanding your award. So it may actually be too good to be true. A lot of times, colleges will give you these financial aid packages that look awesome, and it looks like you have a lot of money and they're giving you a ton of stuff, but that could be mostly loan-based. So you want to be really, really careful about how you're reading your financial aid, your award letter. Your aid amount might be higher because the cost of attendance is higher. So you want to make sure that, if you're going to a private school and they're giving you, buttloads of money, then they're probably trying to make the cost as much as a public school. So you want to just make sure that you put everything in retrospect, and you want to wait until you get all of your financial aid awards, just so that you can have a more clear understanding of what you're doing, where you're going, and if the best fit college for you is the best fit for you financially as well. So there is a tool where you can compare your financial aid offers. It's called bigfuture.collegeboard.org. So I definitely highly recommend going here once you get all of your financial aid awards, and you can use this tool to compare. So gift aid is the best form of financial aid. This is money you don't pay back. So grants and scholarships. So sometimes when you are awarded a presidential scholarship or a blah 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 scholarship or a blah 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 grant at your school, there are strings that are attached to that. So making sure that you know, what do I have to do to keep my scholarship? Do I have to get above a 3.5 GPA? Do I have to do a certain number of community service hours? Do I have to do X, Y, Z? So knowing what the commitment is going into once you accept that grant or scholarship from an institution. So here's an example of an award letter. So here we have, so you can see that we have received $5,000 total in the Pell Grant. So that's money that we're not paying back. We also received $16,000 in scholarship money, which is also money we don't have to pay back. And then if you can see here, we have $2,000 available in work study, which is also money that you don't pay back but you work for. So now we're going to look at the loans, the subsidized, unsubsidized, and plus loans. So we receive about $15,000 in loans. So another example as to why this might have looked a little bit different for you on your award letter is you might say, wow, I got a ton of money, which you did get a ton of money from this school, but 15,000 of it was from loans. So just making sure that you're understanding what you're getting in your award letter. Negotiating your aid. That is definitely, it might be something that you're uncomfortable with, but something that I am here to help with, as well as your parents or guardians, as well as your counselors. If you feel like you've been cheated out on your financial aid package, definitely negotiate your aid. Call that financial aid office, request an appeal process. But a couple of pointers to remember when you're doing this. You need to have evidence to back up your request. If you have evidence about, if your parents aren't paying for your college or they have 5 children that they have to feed, you need to have documentation as to why they should reconsider your financial aid package. Be professional and courteous. You're not going to get anywhere if you're rude and obnoxious. So definitely just be professional, be courteous. You're trying to get something out of these people, so being the nicest possible you can. Wait until you receive all of your financial aid award packages. You might be negotiating aid for a school that you're not even interested in, and that is just a waste of your time and a waste of their time and a waste of money. So just wait until you get all of your financial aid awards, and then you can kind of figure out what you need to negotiate and if you need to negotiate. And then finally, have a backup plan. It's always good to have a plan B. If you negotiate, and it just doesn't work out, then what's your plan B? What's your backup plan? How are we going to make this work? So just a few pointers. Okay, and that's kind of all I have for you today. I'm sorry for this longer video, but I figured that this would be a good way for me to interact with you all and give you information. Like I said, feel free to email me and call the school. My extension is 2038. Students, I'm also in the 1112 housing office, so if you have any questions, feel free to stop by. My door is always open. Alrighty, thank you so much.